Hello friends, welcome to my channel Creating Essence. I am Megan. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today is the second week of October. If you saw my first video on the first Monday of this month, I will link it up in the corner in case you didn't, but I said that I was going to be talking this month each Monday about something pertaining to pregnancy and infant loss. October is International Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. And as someone who is a birth worker in that particular field, as well as birth in general, and someone who has experienced pregnancy loss, I wanted to be able to share my knowledge and wisdom with you about the topic, different things that people don't really feel good talking about or don't want to talk about sometimes, but it can be useful to hear and to share. Now today I am talking in particular about 5 things that you shouldn't say to someone experiencing pregnancy or infant loss, and 5 things that you should say. A lot of the not to say things are things that we as women experiencing loss hear when someone thinks they're being comforting. Most of them are cliches, and they're just things people say without realizing what they're actually saying. Rarely are they said with malicious intent. It's by people who love us and think that they're comforting us. So if you love someone experiencing loss, here are 5 things not to say. Number 1, it happened for a reason. That may be comforting to some. It may be comforting after a time. But when someone is experiencing a loss, they don't want to be told that there's some reason out in the universe that their child died. When you're grieving and you're in the depths of that grief, you don't want the pat answer of, oh, don't worry, there's a reason for this somewhere out in the universe. It's not comforting. It's really upsetting. And to a lot of us, it feels like you're saying, we don't really have a right to be sad, because if our child was sick or there was something wrong with our child, and that's the reason they died, then it's for the best. Bonus, don't ever say it's for the best, because it doesn't matter how horribly sick our child is. Telling us it's the best thing they're dead, not okay. Statistically, 80% of babies who are lost during pregnancy are lost because of some kind of chromosomal abnormality or defect that interfered with their vital organs enough that they died. That doesn't really matter. It still hurts so much that they're gone, and it's okay to grieve. When you're the one experiencing loss, it feels like you're rubbing it in our face. So don't do that. Number 2, at least your loss was early. Nope. No, at least nothing. My baby was my baby no matter how old my baby was when he or she died. At least nothing. I know there's some kind of quantitative concept in society that thinks that the further along you are, the more it hurts. Yes, there are nuances to loss that can be far more traumatic, especially beyond the first trimester, when we kind of feel safe. We stop worrying about the potential for loss a lot of times. And there are some nuances that can add to the trauma, but a woman can love her baby the moment she gets a positive test just as much as when she delivers that baby into her hands at 40 weeks or beyond. So no, not at least it was early. Her baby's still dead. Number 3 thing not to say, you can just have another one. I heard so many times, oh, you are so young, at least you can have another one. No, I can't have a replacement child. what you are suggesting without realizing it is that you're saying, you know, oh, you can just make a replacement. No one will replace this child that you've lost. And to suggest that is incredibly, it's not only demeaning to the baby that has died, but it is just crushing to a family's hearts and totally dehumanizing their child and discrediting their grief. Don't ever suggest a replacement. I know that's not what people mean. They mean to give you hope. It's not giving hope. It hurts. Number 4 thing not to say. Oh, well, be thankful for your other children. No, I mean, yes, obviously. I'm so thankful for my other children. If anything, I am even more grateful now and take far less for granted with my other children than I did before we lost our son. But to tell someone to just be grateful for the children they do have, really? You're allowed to be broken for the baby that you've lost. You're allowed to be totally useless for a little bit to your other children and to be emotionally crushed. That in no way makes you ungrateful for the children you do have. And number 5 thing not to say is anything in any way relating a person's loss of a child before or after birth to the loss of a pet. I love my pets. Right now, we have 8 cats, a big furry dog, and 2 guinea pigs running around this house. We love our pets, and we have lots of them. But it doesn't matter how much you loved your pet, and if you thought that pet was your baby, there is something so profoundly different that I cannot explain about losing a child from your own womb, your own flesh and blood. It does not compare to when your cat died, or your dog, or your llama. No, it's not the same. And when you try to compare them, you completely dehumanize our child and demean our grief. And there is no doubt you were crushed when your pet died. It does not compare. Don't try to relate in that way, please. And now 5 things to say, because I don't want to tell you to just shut up. People still need you, and they need you even more. So here are some things to equip you with what to say to families experiencing loss. Number 1, say nothing. That's okay. It's totally okay to say nothing. Just be there. Just be present. Just give them a hug. A long hug with a knowing look. And just make sure they know you're there. You don't have to say anything. Just be there. Sometimes we really don't want to talk. Sometimes it's just nice to know that somebody's there for a minute, holding space with us and acknowledging that we hurt too much for you to know what to say to try to make it better. Number 2 thing to say to a family experiencing loss, what can I do to help? And I don't mean you're trying to take away their pain. I mean practical expressions of love. Because when we lost our son, some days the last thing I could think about was making dinner that day. I was too drained from caring for the rest of my children all day and being a wife and a mother and pretending to keep up on laundry and housework. What can you do? Start a meal train. If the person you love experiencing loss is part of even a small community, start a meal train. Like 3 days a week, have spots for people to sign up to bring you a meal or send you an e-gift card for Domino's or a gift card to a local grocery store where you can just pick up some quick food real quick. Just taking that burden of the thought of making a meal off your plate helps so much. Ask what they can do. If they have things for you to do, do them. as someone who walks with families through loss, sometimes when I ask that, it literally means calling a funeral home. That is rough. And it's not always that heavy. You might have to call a funeral home and ask about prices on infant cremation and find out if anyone has a special. Tidbit, a lot of funeral homes have specials and crematories have specials because the loss of a baby before or after birth is so intense. A lot of times they will do it for free or give you a discounted price if you ask. That may be something you're called upon to do. And those places expect those calls. So don't feel like you're doing something awful calling. And I cannot tell you the weight it can take off of families. And it might not be that intense. It might be, I'm literally out of toilet paper. I'm literally out of ketchup. So you run to the store and you grab ketchup and toilet paper and drop it off on their doorstep. Include some peanut M&Ms. Something along those lines that just might be something sweet and extra special to say, here's practical love and here's a little extra. I care. Number 3, you could say, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. Because when you ask families in the midst of grief, if there's something you can do, they can't always think of something. Life is too overwhelming. So you can say, I am starting this meal train. What days of the week would be best to bring dinner? Or you could say, I am bringing over some groceries. Let me know your favorites. Are you low on these things? Toilet paper, coffee, tea, those kinds of essentials. I am doing this. Tell me how to make it work best for you because I am doing this. It's not intrusive. If someone really doesn't want you around, they will tell you and it will be clear. But most of the time, they desperately need people and they don't know how to say it. So say, I am doing this. Tell me how to make it work for you. And number 4 thing that you can say to a family experiencing loss, it's okay to not be okay. There's a cliche in our society where people say something like, oh, you're doing so well, because people don't seem to be outwardly grieving. Why is outwardly grieving a bad thing? It's not. When I'm leading groups or talking to people about loss of any kind, and they get upset and start to cry, people always apologize for their emotion. I say, don't apologize. Please feel. This is a good thing. Feel. This is a safe space. I'm okay with you feeling. And if I wasn't, I wouldn't be here. Let people feel and let them know that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to be raw with you. And the number 5 thing to do with a family experiencing loss is to say their baby's name. And not all families are comfortable naming their baby before that baby, a gender has been established. And that's okay too. Mention their baby. If their baby was given a name, saying the baby's name, or just when it's appropriate. And it may feel weird figuring out when appropriate is, but don't. There's a common misconception that saying our baby's names or mentioning that our baby lived or mentioning our loss brings us extra pain. But we do not for a second forget that child or not feel that pain. We just show it less on the outside as we learn to walk with that really heavy burden. And you saying our baby's name or mentioning our loss just reminds us that you know our baby existed. So often we feel like we're the only ones that remember, and that our baby lived for so long that nobody else knows they even live. And when you mention our baby's existence, especially by calling them by name, if our babies had names, for a brief second, you're coming alongside us and saying, I see you and I remember. And it may catch us off guard. It may make us, catch our breath for a second or pause. It may make us cry, but not because you brought up any hurt. It's usually pretty shocking that someone else cares enough to know our baby's name, our baby's birthday, our baby's existence. It means more than I can say. And there are so many more things I could add to this list, but in the interest of keeping it brief, those are the 5 things not to say and the 5 things to say to a family experiencing loss before or after birth. If there's anything you would like to add to this list, something you've heard, something you inadvertently said one time and didn't realize until after the fact its impact, leave it in the comments below. If you think this could help someone, or you just want to share it in honor of Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, go ahead and share this video. Give it a thumbs up if it touched you or if it meant something to you, and I would love to hear from you in the comments below. I mentioned it on my Facebook page, but I don't think I did in my last video. I am going to be doing at least one Q&A for a YouTube video for Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month. So if you have a question you would like to ask me as a person who's experienced loss or as a birth professional who helps care for people walking that path, you can leave it in the comments below, or if you'd prefer to remain anonymous, you can send me a private message with that information. I would love to hear from you, and I will honor you in remaining anonymous. And it can be any question, even the ugly questions that you've always wondered about. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, friends. It means so much to me as a birth professional who walks with families through loss, as well as the mother of a child who lives in heaven. Thank you so much, friends. Bye-bye.